everyone. Most welcome to this episode of Easy Talk Time. We will help you to improve your English, and you don't need to panic. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Sam, and we are so happy you're here with us today. Whether you're listening while walking, cooking, relaxing, or maybe hiding from a conversation you need to have.
Oh, if that last one is you, don't worry. You are in exactly the right place today.
Because today we are talking about something that every single human being on this planet can relate to. Something we have all done, something we are probably doing right now without even realizing it.
We are talking about conversations we keep avoiding.
Yes, those conversations. The ones that live in the back of your mind. The ones you think about in the shower. The ones you almost start and then pull back from at the last second.
The talk with a friend you haven't been honest with, the conversation with a family member that is long overdue, the difficult thing you need to say to your partner, or even the honest conversation you need to have with yourself.
We are going to talk about all of it today. Why we avoid these conversations, what it costs us when we do, and how to finally, gently, bravely start them.
And of course, as always, we're going to help your English along the way. Lots of natural phrases, real vocabulary, and expressions you can actually use in real life.
So make yourself comfortable. Take a breath, and let's begin.
Let's start simple. Sam, what do you think of when you hear the phrase, a conversation you keep avoiding?
Immediately, about 5 different conversations come to my mind that I have been putting off, which tells you everything about how universal this topic is.
Same. Honestly, same.
And I think most people, if they're honest, have at least one conversation sitting in their mind right now that they know they need to have, but just haven't.
And it could be big or small, right? It doesn't have to be some dramatic, life-changing talk. Sometimes it's as simple as telling a friend that something they said hurt your feelings.
Or asking your boss for a raise you deserve. Or telling someone in your family that you need more space. Or admitting to a friend that you've been struggling.
Or even just saying, I'm not okay, to someone who loves you.
That last one is harder than it sounds for so many people.
It really is, because those 3 words, I'm not okay, require vulnerability. And vulnerability is one of the most frightening things a human being can offer another person.
So, an avoided conversation is basically any exchange with another person or even with yourself that you know needs to happen, but that you keep finding reasons to delay.
You tell yourself, it's not the right time. They're busy. It'll make things awkward. Maybe it'll just resolve itself.
Maybe it'll just resolve itself. That one is the great lie we tell ourselves.
The great lie, because how often does it actually just resolve itself?
Almost never. In fact, avoided conversations have this terrible habit of growing. The longer you wait, the bigger they feel. The bigger they feel, the harder they become to start.
And so you wait longer, and they grow bigger, and the whole thing becomes this enormous weight you carry around.
Which is exhausting, truly exhausting. Carrying unspoken things is one of the heaviest things a person can do.
So let's really dig into this. Why do we avoid conversations? What's actually going on underneath the surface?
The number one reason? Fear. Pure and simple. We're afraid of what might happen if we have the conversation.
Afraid of the reaction, afraid of hurting someone, afraid of being hurt ourselves, afraid that saying the thing out loud will make it more real.
And there's a specific kind of fear that I think drives a lot of avoided conversations, the fear of conflict. Many people grew up in environments where conflict felt dangerous or wrong.
If you grew up in a home where arguments were loud and painful, or on the other extreme, where nothing was ever discussed at all, you learn that bringing up difficult things causes problems.
And so your nervous system learned, stay quiet, keep the peace, don't rock the boat. And that lesson, as protective as it was then, can hold you back as an adult.
Because healthy relationships, whether friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, work relationships, actually need honest conversation to survive and grow.
A relationship where nothing difficult is ever said is not a peaceful relationship. It is a silent one, and silence has its own kind of damage.
That's something I learned the hard way, actually. I had a friendship once where we never argued, never disagreed openly, never brought up anything uncomfortable, and on the surface, it looked perfect.
But underneath,
Underneath, there was so much unsaid, so many small hurts that had never been addressed, and eventually the friendship just quietly fell apart. Not with a big argument, just with distance.
because the unspoken things took up all the space.
Exactly. And I think if either of us had just been brave enough to say, hey, I need to tell you something, maybe it would have been different.
Another big reason we avoid conversations, we don't know how to have them. Nobody teaches us this. We go to school and learn maths and science and history, but nobody sits us down and teaches us how to say a hard thing with clarity and kindness.
Communication skills are genuinely one of the most important life skills a human can have, and they are almost completely absent from formal education.
So people grow up not knowing how to start difficult conversations, not knowing what words to use, not knowing how to stay calm when emotions are high, and so they avoid it altogether.
Because doing something badly feels worse than not doing it at all, even though the opposite is usually true.
A badly started honest conversation is almost always better than a perfectly maintained silence. Let's talk about what it actually costs us, practically and emotionally, when we keep avoiding these conversations.
Because I think a lot of people avoid conversations thinking they are protecting themselves or the other person, but they're not always aware of the full price they're paying.
Cost number one, resentment. When you swallow something that needs to be said, it doesn't disappear. It sits inside and slowly turns to resentment.
And resentment is like a slow leak in a relationship. It doesn't destroy things all at once. It just quietly drains the warmth and the joy until one day you look at someone you used to love and feel nothing. Or worse, something cold.
That is one of the saddest things that can happen between people, and it happens so often, and it is so preventable.
Cost number two, distance. Every avoided conversation creates a small gap between two people, and small gaps over time become large ones.
You know that feeling where you're sitting next to someone and you feel completely far away from them? That distance almost always has unspoken words in it.
I felt that. It's one of the loneliest feelings in the world, being physically close to someone and emotionally miles away.
Cost number three, physical and mental health. And this one surprises people, but the research is very clear. Carrying unspoken stress, holding things in, suppressing emotions has real effects on your body and mind.
Anxiety, tension headaches, sleep problems, that constant low-level hum of something being wrong that you can't quite name because you've been pushing it down.
Your body keeps the score. Whatever your mind is carrying, your body feels it.
And cost number four, missed connection. When we avoid honest conversations, we miss the chance to actually be known by the people in our lives.
Real intimacy in any relationship, not just romantic ones, comes from being truly seen. And you cannot be truly seen if you are only showing the safe, easy, comfortable parts of yourself.
The conversations we avoid are often exactly the ones that would bring us closest to the people we love.
Which is the great irony. We avoid them to protect the relationship, but having them is what actually deepens it.
Before we talk about conversations with other people, I want to talk about one that I think is the most overlooked and possibly the most important, the conversation with yourself.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is the one people forget entirely.
How many of us are avoiding an honest conversation with ourselves right now about something in our life that isn't working, a job that makes us miserable, a relationship that isn't right, a dream we've been quietly burying?
We become very good at distracting ourselves. Phones, Netflix, busyness, noise, all of it can be a way of avoiding sitting quietly with ourselves and asking, how am I really doing?
Because the answer might be uncomfortable. The answer might require change, and change is scary.
So we stay busy, we stay distracted, we avoid the inner conversation just like we avoid the outer ones.
But those inner conversations, the honest check-ins with yourself, are the foundation of everything. You cannot communicate clearly with others if you haven't first gotten clear with yourself.
What do I actually feel about this situation? What do I actually need? What am I afraid to admit, even to myself?
Those questions take courage, real courage, the kind that happens in quiet moments, not dramatic ones.
And for your English learning, too, I want to say something here. Many of our listeners are having an avoided conversation with themselves about their English.
Oh, say more.
How many of you have been saying, I'll start speaking English properly when I'm more confident. I'll practice when I know more words. I'll try when I'm ready.
That's an avoided conversation with yourself. I'm not practicing because I'm afraid of making mistakes is a truth that needs to be spoken.
And the moment you admit it to yourself, gently, without judgment, you can actually do something about it. You can say, okay, I'm scared, and I'm going to try anyway.
Which is exactly what the bravest English learners do. They speak before they feel ready. They make mistakes. They grow.
And that is the lesson for language learning and for life. You will never feel completely ready for the honest conversation. You just have to begin.
Let's go through some of the most common types of conversations people avoid, and I think listeners will recognize themselves in some of these.
First type, the hurt feelings conversation. Someone said or did something that hurt you, but instead of telling them, you said, it's fine, and quietly carried the hurt alone.
It's fine. Two of the most dangerous words in the English language when they're not true.
They really are. Because when you say it's fine and it isn't, you've started an invisible conversation that the other person doesn't even know is happening.
And then they wonder why you seem distant, why things feel a bit off, and they can't fix something they don't know is broken.
Second type, the boundary conversation. When you need to tell someone, I need you to stop doing this. This doesn't work for me. I need something different from this relationship.
These are hard, especially if you were raised to believe that having needs is selfish or demanding.
So many people, especially those who are raised to always put others first, find boundary conversations almost physically painful because it feels like you're being difficult, like you're causing a problem.
When actually, clearly communicating what you need is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself and for the other person.
Because when people know what you need, they can actually give it to you. When they're guessing, they'll get it wrong, and you'll both be frustrated.
Third type, the career conversation. The raise you haven't asked for, the promotion you deserve, the feedback you've been wanting to give your manager, the I want to change direction talk.
These feel high stakes because they involve your livelihood, and there's often a power dynamic that makes them feel risky.
But here's what I've learned. People who ask for what they deserve at work get it far more often than people who wait to be noticed. Waiting to be noticed is another form of an avoided conversation.
Yes, hoping someone will just see your value without you advocating for yourself. That is a conversation you're having in your head, but not out loud.
And the conversation in your head doesn't count.
It counts for your stress levels, unfortunately.
Fair point. Fourth type, the love conversation. Telling someone how you feel, whether that's romantic love or telling a friend they mean everything to you, or telling a family member you love them when those words don't come easily in your family.
Oh, this one. Love conversations are avoided more than people realize because vulnerability in love feels like the ultimate risk.
What if they don't feel the same? What if it changes things? What if saying it out loud makes it fragile somehow?
And so people carry love silently, for years sometimes, wishing the other person could just know without being told.
But people can't read minds. Love that isn't expressed is love that isn't fully received.
Tell the people you love that you love them. Use the words often and specifically, not just I love you, but I love the way you make me feel safe, or I love how hard you work for our family, or I love that you always answer when I call.
Specific love is the most powerful kind.
And fifth type, the goodbye conversation. The friendship that has slowly drifted but needs an honest acknowledgement. The relationship that has ended but never had a real ending. The chapter of your life you haven't properly closed.
Goodbyes are perhaps the conversations we avoid the most, because saying goodbye to something makes it real, and sometimes we'd rather live in the uncertainty than face the loss.
But unfinished goodbyes keep you connected to things that have already ended. They hold you in a kind of in-between place.
And you deserve to be fully present in your life, not half here and half in something that's already gone.
Let's talk about relationships specifically, because I think this is where avoided conversations do the most damage, and also where breaking the pattern makes the biggest difference.
In close relationships with partners, family, dear friends, the things we don't say become the invisible walls between us.
And those walls go up so gradually that we often don't notice until they're already quite high. One avoided conversation is not catastrophic, but 10, 20, 100, they build something solid.
I think about relationships I've watched fall apart. And so often, it wasn't one big dramatic thing. It was years of small, unspoken things accumulating.
A small hurt that was never addressed, a need that was hinted at but never clearly stated, a growing distance that neither person wanted to name.
And by the time someone finally speaks, if they ever do, there is so much history of silence that even the speaking feels foreign, like trying to have a conversation in a language you've both forgotten.
Which is why the time to practice honest conversation is not when the relationship is in crisis. It's when things are relatively good. Build the muscle of honesty in the easy moments so you have it available in the hard ones.
That's such a good point. Communication is a skill. Like any skill, it gets easier the more you use it.
And in relationships, every time you successfully have a hard conversation and come out the other side still connected, maybe even closer, you build trust, not just in the other person, in yourself.
Trust in your own ability to handle difficult things, to say hard truths with love, to receive them without falling apart.
Because that's the fear underneath so many avoided conversations, not just what will they think, but can I handle whatever comes back?
And the answer almost always is yes. You are more capable of handling honest conversation than you give yourself credit for.
Okay, let's do something really useful for our English learners right now. Let's talk about the actual English phrases you can use to start difficult conversations.
Because one of the real barriers, especially for people speaking English as a second language, is not knowing what to say. The words feel elusive, and so the conversation gets pushed further and further away.
So let's give you some tools, real, natural English phrases you can use. And these are useful whether you're having the conversation in English or just learning the structure to apply in your own language.
First, how to open a difficult conversation. You might say, "Can I talk to you about something?" Very simple, very clear, and it gives the other person a moment to prepare. Or, "I've been wanting to say something and I wasn't sure how to start." This is honest about your own nervousness. It makes the conversation feel safer immediately. Or, "I care about you and there's something I need to share." Starting with care before the content. That sets the whole tone.
Then, how to express a feeling without attacking. Instead of "you always do this," which puts the other person on the defensive immediately, you say, "I feel hurt when this happens."
The difference between you statements and I statements is enormous. "You made me feel" is an accusation. "I feel" is an invitation.
And people respond to invitations. They put walls up against accusations.
Another useful phrase, "I might not be saying this perfectly, but I want to try," because it gives you permission to be imperfect, and it usually makes the other person want to help you say what you mean.
Or, "I've been carrying this for a while, and I think it's time I said something." Honest, clear. It communicates that this matters to you.
And for English learners specifically, it is completely fine to say, "My English is not perfect, but I want to express something important." People will meet you halfway, always.
Honesty about your language limitations is itself a form of courage, and it almost always makes the conversation warmer, not harder.
Then, how to listen after you've spoken. Because an honest conversation is not a one-way speech. After you say your piece, you listen, really listen.
Phrases for listening. I hear you. I understand. Can you tell me more about that? I hadn't thought of it that way.
These phrases signal that you're genuinely present, that you came to connect, not just to win.
Because the goal of a difficult conversation is never to win, it's to understand and to be understood.
If everyone walked into hard conversations with that as the only goal, understand and be understood, so many fewer relationships would break.
Let's get really practical. If someone is listening right now and they have a conversation they've been avoiding, what do they actually do, step by step?
Step 1. Get clear with yourself first. Before you approach anyone else, sit with the conversation in your own head. What do you actually want to say? What do you need the other person to know? What outcome are you hoping for?
Writing it down helps enormously. You don't have to share what you write, but getting your thoughts out of your head and onto paper makes them clearer and less overwhelming.
Step 2. Choose the right moment. Timing genuinely matters. Don't start a hard conversation when either of you is hungry, tired, rushed, or already stressed.
Look for a calm, private, unhurried moment, and if you need to, ask for one. Can we find some time this week to talk about something? Giving advance notice is an act of kindness. It lets the other person prepare.
Step 3. Start with connection, not accusation. Before you get to the hard part, remind both of you and yourself why this relationship matters, why you're here, why you're doing this hard thing instead of just walking away.
I'm telling you this because I value our friendship. I'm having this conversation because I want us to be okay. That context changes everything.
Step 4. Say the thing. Not perfectly, not eloquently, just honestly. You don't need the perfect words, you need the real ones.
The imperfect, genuine truth is always better than the perfectly worded silence.
Step 5. Stay. Don't run after you've said what you needed to say. The conversation doesn't end when you finish speaking. It begins. Be there for whatever comes back. Listen, stay present.
And step 6, be patient with yourself afterward. Hard conversations are emotionally tiring. You might feel vulnerable or raw or uncertain even if the conversation went well. That's normal. Give yourself gentleness.
And if the conversation didn't go how you hoped, that's okay too. The act of having it still mattered. You still showed up. You still chose honesty over silence.
And that is something to be proud of every single time.
Can we talk about something that I think is really important? What happens when you are ready to have the conversation, but the other person is not?
Oh yes, because this happens. You gather your courage, you say the thing, and the other person shuts down, gets defensive, dismisses you, or simply isn't in a place to receive what you're offering.
And that can feel devastating. You were vulnerable, you tried, and it didn't land the way you hoped.
First thing to know, the other person's inability to receive your honesty is not a reflection of whether your honesty was right. It might just not be their time yet.
People process things differently and at different speeds. Sometimes someone needs to hear something, sit with it, come back to it later before they can truly receive it.
And sometimes, and this is a harder truth, some people are simply not able or not willing to have honest conversations, not because of anything you did, just because of where they are in their own journey.
And you cannot force someone to be ready for honesty. You cannot make someone receive what they're not prepared to hold.
What you can do, and this matters, is recognize that you did your part. You showed up, you spoke your truth with care. Whatever happens after that is not entirely in your hands.
And in some cases, when the pattern of avoidance is deeply entrenched in a relationship, it might be worth considering whether professional support, like a therapist or counselor, could help create a safer space for both people.
There is absolutely no shame in getting support for communication. In fact, it is one of the bravest and most loving things a person can choose.
For a relationship or for yourself individually, having a space to process the things you've been carrying with a professional, with a trusted friend, even through journaling, is genuinely powerful.
You do not have to carry unspoken things alone. There are always ways to find the words, the space, the support. Okay, I want to loop back to something Sam mentioned earlier, the avoided conversation with yourself about your English, because I think this deserves its own space.
Yes, because so many of our listeners are on an English learning journey, and that journey has its own avoided conversations.
Like, I'm afraid to speak because I might make a mistake. That's a truth a lot of people carry but don't say out loud.
Or, I've been learning for years and I still don't feel confident. That's real, that's honest, and it's something many learners feel but think they shouldn't.
Or I compare myself to other learners and always feel behind. That internal conversation, unspoken, just creates quiet shame.
And shame is the enemy of learning, because shame makes you hide, and hiding never helped anyone grow.
So here is an invitation, and we are saying this with so much warmth. Have the honest conversation with yourself about where you are in your English journey right now.
Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, where you actually are, with curiosity and kindness, not criticism.
Maybe you say, I understand a lot, but I'm scared to speak. Okay, that's real. Work from there.
Or, I make grammar mistakes and I get embarrassed. Okay, that's real too. And by the way, every single English speaker makes grammar mistakes, including native speakers.
Including us, all the time.
Constantly. The goal is not perfect English. The goal is honest, clear, real communication, and not as available to everyone.
One of the most powerful things you can do for your English is start having the conversations you've been avoiding in English, imperfectly, bravely, honestly.
Every uncomfortable, stumbling, beautiful attempt moves you forward. The avoided conversations, even in English, are the ones where the most growth is hiding.
I want to end the main part of our conversation on something hopeful, because we've talked a lot about the difficulty and the cost of avoiding conversations. But let's talk about what becomes possible when you finally have them.
Oh yes, this is the good part.
The relief. That first thing you feel after finally saying the thing you've been carrying for so long, like putting down something heavy you didn't realize you were still holding.
That relief is one of the best feelings, like a physical lightening. Your shoulders drop, your breathing changes, something in you exhales.
And often, the thing you feared would happen doesn't happen. The relationship doesn't end, the person doesn't leave, the world doesn't fall apart.
In fact, more often than not, the other person says something like, I've been wanting to talk about this too, or thank you for telling me, I didn't know.
Those moments, when you realize the conversation you were both avoiding was the very conversation you both needed, that is one of the most connecting human experiences there is.
And the closeness that comes after a real, honest conversation, the kind where both people showed up and stayed present, is deeper than almost any other closeness.
Because you've been real with each other. You've been seen, and being seen, truly seen by another person is one of the deepest human needs.
We all want to be known, and we can only be known through the conversations we're brave enough to have.
So yes, the conversations we keep avoiding are uncomfortable. They are scary. They require courage and vulnerability and sometimes imperfect words.
But on the other side of them, connection, relief, growth, deeper love, a lighter life.
And that, all of that, is worth every uncomfortable moment of the beginning.
All right, we're coming to the close of today's episode, and I just want to sit here for a moment because this conversation has genuinely moved me today.
Me too, Sam. And I think this is one of those topics where every listener can find themselves somewhere in what we've talked about.
Because we have all done this, every one of us. We have all carried something unspoken that needed to be said. We have all stood at the edge of a conversation and stepped back.
And today, we want to leave you with two lessons, one about life and one about English, because that's what Easy Talk Time is, real life and real English together.
The life lesson first. Are you ready?
The conversations you keep avoiding are not protecting you. They are simply delaying the relief, the growth, and the connection that is waiting for you on the other side of them.
Every unspoken truth takes up space inside you, space that could be used for peace, for joy, for presence, for all the beautiful things that become possible when you are no longer carrying what should have been said.
You do not need to be perfect to have a hard conversation. You do not need the perfect words, the perfect moment, or perfect courage. You just need to begin, imperfectly, honestly, kindly.
Say the thing, gently, bravely, with love for yourself and for the person you're saying it to.
Because the people who matter to you deserve your honesty, and so do you.
You deserve the lightness that comes from living without the weight of unspoken things.
Now, the English lesson. And this one is for every listener who is on this journey of learning English. Hear this clearly.
Your English does not need to be perfect for your words to matter. Honest words spoken imperfectly will always reach people more deeply than perfect words spoken without feeling.
The avoided conversation in English, the one where you stop yourself from speaking because you're afraid of making a mistake, that is the conversation that has the most to teach you.
Every mistake is data. Every attempt is progress. Every stumble is proof that you are trying, and trying is everything.
So speak, write, express, communicate in whatever English you have today. Use it, share it, let it be imperfect and real and yours.
Because your voice in English, with all its beautiful imperfections, deserves to be heard.
And here is the final thing we want to leave you with today. One sentence that we hope you carry with you.
The conversation you are most afraid to have is usually the one that will set you most free.
Read that again if you need to. The conversation you are most afraid to have is usually the one that will set you most free.
So be free. Start the conversation, in life and in English.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. It means the world to us that you are here. Please share this episode with someone who has a conversation they've been putting off, because the right words at the right time can change everything.
Take care of yourselves. Be honest with the people you love. Be kind to yourself on the brave days and the hard ones.
And we will see you next time on Easy Talk Time. Bye, everyone. You've got this.
See you next time. Go have that conversation.
If you enjoyed this, subscribe to Easy Talk Time and keep learning English with us.